By the time Agent Torres pulled up to my driveway, the HOA board had been standing in a semicircle on my lawn for 2 straight hours, clutching clipboards like crucifixes and rehearsing whatever speech they thought would scare me into compliance. The president, Belinda Cross, a woman whose hair was sprayed into a helmet that could deflect small arms fire, was mid-sentence when his unmarked black SUV rolled to a stop. Her voice cracked at the sight of him. "Is that," she whispered, eyes flicking from Torres' badge to the government plates. "Yes," Torres said calmly, stepping up beside me. "I'm with the FBI. And I'd love to know why you've been loitering on this man's property for 120 minutes without his consent." The shift was instant. The bravado evaporated. One of the board members audibly squeaked. Another started crying. Belinda's clipboard trembled in her hand. And that's when I realized this was finally going to be fun. My name is Marcus Hale, proud owner of the beige 2-story at the end of a cul-de-sac in Sycamore Glen, a neighborhood that marketed itself as luxury suburban living and delivered mostly passive-aggressive emails and matching mailboxes. I worked from home as a software engineer, liked my peace and quiet, and interacted with exactly 3 types of people. The Amazon driver. The pizza guy. My friend Daniel Torres, who happened to work for the FBI and came over every other Friday to watch bad movies and mock true crime documentaries. For the first year, Sycamore Glen was tolerable. But then the HOA elected a new president, Belinda Cross. Belinda was the kind of woman who treated the HOA bylaws like sacred scripture and her role as if she'd been handpicked by destiny to defend property values from the unspeakable horror of slightly mismatched patio furniture. Within a month of her presidency, she'd sent out a 27-page PDF titled Standards of Visual Harmony. Installed security cameras on her porch for safety, but somehow they all pointed suspiciously at everyone else's houses. Announced that informal lawn inspections would be conducted as needed. My first violation notice arrived on a Tuesday. Infraction: non-compliant lawn decor. Description: suspicious gnome. I thought it was a joke. I was wrong. It escalated in slow, petty waves. First, the gnome. "Marcus," Belinda said, adjusting her giant sunglasses like she was going to interrogate me under a lamp, "this gnome does not match the approved color palette for Sycamore Glen. It's whimsical." "It's a garden decoration," I replied. "He's holding a tiny shovel." Belinda pursed her lips. "He's holding chaos." The next notice came a week later. Infraction: trash cans visible from street for 14 minutes after pickup. I know it was 14 minutes because the notice included a time-stamped photo. Belinda had literally waited with a stopwatch. Then it was excessive curtain patterning visible from exterior. Garage door open for unapproved duration. Wind chimes audible beyond property line. My personal favorite was infraction: unregistered vehicle. It was my cousin's car, parked in my driveway for a single afternoon. Belinda started watching my house like it was a crime scene. I'd catch her walking by slowly, eyes crawling over my roofline, my shrubs, my porch. Once, at 11:30 p.m., my security camera caught her creeping up to my front yard, phone flashlight in hand, photographing my Halloween decorations. Next day, infraction: skeleton not seasonally appropriate on October 12th. I laughed it off at first. But then she started trespassing. I woke up one morning to find a bright orange notice of noncompliance taped directly to my front window from the inside. I didn't put it there. Belinda had. The breaking point came the day my new router arrived. It was a simple brown package, left on my porch. I was in a meeting when I saw, on my security app, Belinda marching up the steps with 2 board members in tow. She peered at the label, frowned, and then, like it was nothing, picked up my package. I watched on my phone as she turned to the others and said, "We need to make sure he's not running some kind of unapproved server." She tucked it under her arm and walked away. That's mail theft. Federal offense. I walked out my front door so fast I nearly took it off the hinges. "Hey," I called, voice sharp. "Leave that." Belinda spun around, clutching the package like a shield. "Marcus." "Good. We were going to speak with you anyway about some concerns." One of the board members, Greg, chimed in nervously. We received reports you may be operating a surveillance hub?" I pointed at my porch camera. "You mean the doorbell camera you've been posing for every day?" Belinda lifted her chin. Several neighbors have expressed discomfort about your activities. Your late-night visitors. Your vehicles. You mean my friend? I asked. The one who comes over Fridays? Her eyes narrowed. We don't know who he is. Or what he's doing. Or why an unfamiliar car is frequently parked here. For all we know, you're running some sort of... And there it was. The fatal overstep. The next day, I got a certified letter. Belinda, on HOA letterhead, accused me of suspicious activity and stated that if I did not submit a full record of recent visitors, their vehicles, and purpose of visit, she would be forced to notify local law enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security of potential concerns. She copied the city, the local police chief, and this is the part that still makes me laugh, the FBI field office email listed on their public website. That email gets monitored by people like my friend, Special Agent Daniel Torres. Friday rolled around. I invited Torres over, but this time, I filled him in beforehand. I showed him the security footage of Belinda taking my package. The late-night window taping. The fake suspicious activity letter she'd blasted to half the city and the FBI. On the other end of the line, he was silent for a moment. Marcus, he finally said, I thought you moved to the suburbs for less crime. Then, more serious, that letter is wild. She's using made-up security concerns to pressure you and misrepresenting a federal agency. And the package, he sighed. Yeah. We can talk. He told me he'd swing by. Right around 2 p.m., I heard the familiar sound of Belinda's heels clacking on pavement. I peered out the window. She and the entire HOA board were assembling on my lawn. Clipboards out. Printouts in hand. They didn't knock. They just stood there, 6 of them, staring at my front door like a firing squad doing warm-up glares. I let them marinate. Minute 10, Belinda checked her watch, clearly expecting me to rush out. Minute 30, Greg shifted awkwardly, wiping sweat from his forehead. Minute 60, someone suggested coming back later. Belinda hissed, no. He needs to understand the seriousness of this. Minute 120, the SUV pulled up. Torres stepped out in business casual, button-down, slacks, but his badge, clipped at his belt, caught the sunlight nicely. The effect was instantaneous. Afternoon, he said pleasantly, striding up the walk. Marcus. Good to see you. I opened the door, leaned on the frame, and tried not to grin. Hey, Dan. You find the place okay? Belinda's eyes ping-ponged between us. Excuse me, who are you exactly? Torres turned to her, professional smile gone flat. He drew back his jacket just enough to show the credentials. Special Agent Daniel Torres, Federal Bureau of Investigation. You must be Miss Cross. Greg made a sound like a strangled balloon. If you've never seen an HOA board attempt to pivot from we own you to we are simple, innocent volunteers, it's beautiful. Belinda blanched. We were just trying to ensure neighborhood security. Torres nodded slowly. Right. About that. He produced a printed copy of her letter, the one she'd sent to the FBI. You sent this, correct? From this email? He pointed to the HOA address. Yes, but And you stated here, he continued, reading, we may have a potential domestic security threat residing at 19 Sycamore Lane, engaging in unknown high-tech operations, and suspicious meetings with unidentified men at odd hours. That's Marcus. And I'm the unidentified man. The silence was so complete you could hear a leaf question its life choices. Belinda tried to recalibrate. We had to act on reports from concerned neighbors. His cameras, his visitors, his package deliveries. His router, Miss Cross, Torres corrected calmly. The one you removed from his porch and carried off without consent. On camera. He turned his phone, showing her the footage I'd sent him. Her shoulders snapped back, then deflated. I was verifying. That's mail theft, he said, voice mild but edged. And this letter? You implied you were coordinating with federal authorities. You used security language to intimidate a private citizen into providing personal records of his friends. I was just acting outside your authority. Possibly defaming him. creating a false impression of federal interest, and actively harassing a resident under the guise of security. Behind her, one of the board members muttered, "Oh my God," and took a step back like he wanted physical distance from the fallout. Torres didn't raise his voice once. That made it worse. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "I'm filing an incident report documenting this letter and your behavior. I suggest you forward that document to your HOA's attorney, because if Marcus decides to pursue civil action, this will be discovery material." Belinda's eyes filled with tears. "Civil action? And because you've involved federal agencies without cause, this harassment pattern is now documented at that level too," he added. "Which means if there are further security complaints like this, they're not going to be seen as good faith concerns." Belinda was shaking now. "We were just protecting property values." Torres gave her a look that said he was trying very hard not to laugh. "Miss Cross, you don't get to manufacture a fake terrorism concern over a guy with Wi-Fi and a friend." He turned to me. "Marcus, do you feel harassed by this association?" "Yes," I said. "Extremely." He nodded. "Then I'd advise you to speak with a lawyer about a formal cease and desist. And I'll be noting in my report that ongoing harassment after this conversation could be construed as targeted abuse, given they've been clearly warned." That's when one of the board members, Greg, bless him, cracked. "I didn't want to do this," he blurted. "She made us. She said if we didn't back her up she'd fine us, too." Belinda whipped around. "Greg." But the dam had broken. "We've had 3 people resign over this," another board member added. "You threatened to lien Marcus' house over a gnome." Torres raised an eyebrow. "A gnome?" I shrugged. "Suspicious." The fallout was satisfying. Within 2 weeks, the HOA's attorney sent a very carefully worded letter to every resident clarifying that the board does not collaborate with federal law enforcement on routine matters and apologizes for any confusion. The board voted Belinda out as president in an emergency meeting that, according to Greg, felt like a mutiny, but with Costco cookies. Belinda resigned from the board entirely, citing health reasons, though the rest of us translated that as I poked the federal bear and it growled. The civil attorney I spoke with drafted a cease and desist that cited harassment, trespassing, and unlawful attempts to obtain private information under false pretenses. Belinda signed it so fast the ink probably got whiplash. The HOA also adopted a brand new rule. Board members may not represent themselves as acting on behalf of law enforcement, federal agencies, or security operations. Translated, no more cosplay as Homeland Security because someone's lawn flamingo feels subversive. As for Belinda, word around Sycamore Glen is that she tried to run for the board at her new subdivision across town. Turns out background checks don't love phrases like documented incident involving misuse of federal complaint channels. They made her chair of the welcome committee instead. Her job is to hand people muffins and smile. She hates it.